Hi, my name is Rian and welcome to Inside Zambezi, where we're going to have an in-depth discussion on domestic violence. The Namibian Police is a stakeholder in combating domestic violence, and today we're at the Zambezi Regional Police Headquarters and we're going to have the discussion, so follow me for this. Hi, my name is Rian and welcome to Inside Zambezi. Today I'm joined by very special guests from the Namibian Police. So today we are also hosted by the Zambezi Police Regional Headquarters, where we're going to have a in-depth discussion around domestic violence, because the Namibian Police have been an implementing partner in addressing issues relating to domestic violence. So when we really need to combat domestic violence from our societies, the engagement of the police needs to be maximized. So today, as I mentioned, that we are joined by members from the police. I would like to start with you, sir. May you please just give us a brief description of who you are?
Good day. I'm Inspector Kisko Stali, the Unit Commander for Community Policing in Zambezi region, also the mouthpiece of the region on matters pertaining to crime, and also doing awareness and also collaborating with the community in terms of crime prevention groups and about watches in the region. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Inspector Nairenge. I'm an instructor from training and development. I'm also a welfare officer, specializing in problem solving, negotiations, and conflict resolutions. I decided to join Inspector Stali here, the public relations officer in Zambezi region, so we can discuss about this gender-based violence, domestic violence, as well as the protection order. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am Detective Sergeant Matota. I am a law instructor in Simon Mutumba Training Center. I teach basic law to police recruits, and I also teach basic CID and advanced CID to police officers to matters pertaining investigations. So I am here to actually just more of a supplement what my seniors would actually say here. So thank you very much for this opportunity, sir.
Okay, to our viewers, there we have it. We're going to have a very exclusive interview around what the mandate of the police is in combating domestic violence or gender-based violence. Now that we have heard who our guests are, I think I'm going to start with you, Inspector Nairenge. When you're introducing yourself, you mentioned that you're a welfare officer. So before we get to that, can you please just maybe describe to us what domestic violence really is?
Thank you very much. Well, domestic violence is an abuse, a conduct. It can be an act that doesn't conform with the discipline, but it goes beyond. This violence have to happen between people that are related in a domestic relationship. So my colleagues will elaborate more on what is the domestic relationships. So that's what we call domestic violence. Actually, it have to do with the offender doing it to the victim, where the victim suffers this type of violence, and the violence are also categorized or classified in it can be physical violence, it can be sexual, it can be economic, it can be verbal, psychological. They go. So those are type of violence that are also existing in the domestic violence.
Great stuff, great stuff. So, Detective, you mentioned that you are a law instructor, and we are aware that there is a legal framework around domestic violence. So could you just take us a bit through, or just a bit more description on what is the legal framework of domestic violence?
We have different sections within the Domestic Violence Act, but there are two things that we need to understand. We have a domestic relationship, and then we have the types of abuse. If I have to explain domestic violence in layman terms, I have to say that any person who engages himself in any type of abuse, the person they are within a domestic relationship. So let us put two things in regard. There is the domestic relationship, and then there is the types of abuse. That means any person that engages himself in any type of abuse that they are within a domestic relationship. So let us go back to the domestic relationship. Between me and you, who are we with in a domestic relationship? Fine. According to the lawmakers they deemed it necessary to see that any person you're in a domestic relationship with is talking about marriage. That means both traditional and the ones where we go to court and we pay $65. And then we have any person that you have a baby with. In our young terms, we say baby mamas, or baby daddies, yes. And then we have any person who you have a child with, and any person who you're cohabitating with, but you must be of different sexes. If you and I are staying together and then we and I fight, it will not amount to domestic violence. It will only amount to a case in which your rights as a person has been violated. It can conform under gender-based violence. Let's say if I was gay and you didn't like the way that I am because you think that I'm not the way that I'm supposed to be, and then you hit me for that. Yes, that can conform to gender-based violence, only under the umbrella of gender-based violence. Not to say that there's an act that exists that has to do with gender-based violence. So, and then we have consanguinity. We're talking about blood relationship, and then we go back to the same thing when we talked about we should be of different sexes. That means if you hit your brother, it will not necessarily amount to gender-based violence. They look at the degree. Are you the one that offers help to me, support? If me and you are brothers and you don't offer support to me, it cannot amount to domestic violence. But if you are my older brother and I'm dependent on you, and you become more of a guardian to me, then it becomes gender-based violence. Consanguinity also forms between uncle and guardian, the guardian relationship that we're talking about now. Let's say you go pick, like in the Zambezi now, we have this tradition of you go home, you go see a child is suffering. Maybe it's your uncles, nieces, daughters, cousins. You understand, like we Africans, you know our structure, how it goes. Extended family. So you go and then you pick this child and you bring this child home. That relationship also conforms into gender-based violence. It also becomes a domestic relationship because there is that guardian relationship. And then we also go down to adoption. Also forms part and parcel of that. You go and then you adopt. In the modern society, people actually go through adoption relationship and then they actually go adopt children. But within our days, you just go home, you go pick. Now that the law also recognizes that as adoption, and then they also bring it. So those are part and parcel. And then let me not also forget. And then we also have the parent and child relationship. Parent and child means that if you are a biological child of somebody, let's say me and my daughter, me and my stepson, you understand? And then we should also go back to marriage, whereby that if you are married to somebody, that means your sister-in-law, she's also off limits. Your father-in-law is also off limits. Your mother-in-law is also off limits. That is now consanguinity. That is also a relationship through marriage. Marriage is not just between the two of you. It also extends to your extended family. Adoption is also the same way. But the adoption only applies between you and the child, not the two children of yours. If you go and adopt somebody, and then your two children have an affiliation between the two of them, it does not amount to domestic violence. Do you understand? So that is now the types of relationship that is being accommodated within the domestic relationship. So if you engage in any type of violence with this type of people that you are within this domestic relationship that we just mentioned right now, then you are in violation of the Domestic Act. Now then we go down to the types of abuse now. As my inspector Terry here a few minutes ago when he said there are different types of abuse. We have physical abuse, we have economic abuse, we have harassment, we have physical, we have economic, we have
Sexual.
intimidation, we have sexual. You understand? All these types of abuses. If you engage in any type of abuse, then you are forming part and parcel of the Domestic Violence Act.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very interesting overview on what domestic violence really is. Right now in our communities, one of the issues of concern is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is the #1 form of human rights violation. It happens in our private spaces, so it needs an approach that is created in a holistic manner. We do not need to approach, we cannot really combat domestic violence working in silos. So we need collaboration, as all stakeholders should always be engaged into combating domestic violence. So Inspector Stali, what have the police been doing thus far in terms of educating the communities around domestic violence? Maybe if you could just mention a few programs that are out there that the communities could also engage in, because we have realized over the years that a lack of information is also one of the reasons that contributes to gender-based violence being so prominent in our communities. So can you just take us through that?
Thank you very much. The police takes gender-based violence and other domestic violence very serious. That's why there are some guidelines which gave birth now to the domestic violence. Guidelines in gender-based violence that now gave birth to domestic violence. And this gives guidelines on how different sectors should approach domestic violence. Now, from the police side, we've engaged several stakeholders. We have units that are solely dealing with domestic violence. First of all, before you agree with me that people were not open to report issues of domestic violence at our police stations. Simple because it was perceived that a certain gender was put aside, especially men. So men were not opening up, and now the ministry gave some guidelines. Some modules were introduced into our curriculum at our colleges, and then people were taken for training to make sure that they are equipped with the necessary knowledge and the capacity to deal with issues pertaining to gender-based violence or domestic violence. And from the information sharing side, my office is spearheading all the programs in the region that deal with awareness, either at a community level, at the regional level, at the station level, at the farm level. So we have a program that is running, undertaken by my office, the Community Policing Unit, the Gender-Based Violence Subdivision, who are doing the investigations pertaining to gender-based violence cases. We also have a women network that are really assisting not only on creating awareness, but they also do some job whereby they assist the victims of gender-based violence. Maybe, let me say, a child is being neglected, maybe the woman has been thrown away by the husband, or whatever issue that is pertaining to gender-based violence. Our officers, they are assisting to make sure we give shelter to these people, we make arrangements for these people to be taken for counseling. We are not only doing that, we are also approaching it through different approaches. We also do awareness through the radios and other social media platforms. And these are issues that we are addressing also when we are visiting our crime prevention groups. And we take this message to them. They take it very serious, and they are also handling them at that level, at a community level, whereby if a child is beaten, then they now know they can report to this crime prevention group, people in our suburbs. They are also free to come to the police station, unlike in the past whereby we were labeled that the police, when you come and report rape, they'll be laughing at you. When a man comes to report that he's beaten by the wife, they will laugh at him. Those issues, they are no longer there. We have now professional personnel who knows how to handle this type of issues. So in short, that's how those are interventions that we are taking through.
No, thank you very much. I think while we're still at that, the follow-up question is, you mentioned that there is now a gender-based violence protection unit within the police division that only specializes in gender-based violence related matters.
Yes.
So the question is, since it was created due to the fact that it was seen that a lot of men don't really come about and report cases around domestic violence or gender-based violence, can we now then claim to say that men are now actually utilizing these services that are offered by the gender-based violence protection unit?
Yes. Currently now we've seen that a number of cases have been reported by men at various police stations. Maybe the man is assaulted, maybe he's being abused by the wife, even abused by their own kids. Now there are parents who are also coming to the police station to come and report that they are being assaulted or abused by their own children. Before the name of the unit also, it was putting men aside, because before it was known as a women and child abuse. So men felt that they were isolated, they were put aside, they were excluded from the terminology itself, because it was termed as a women and child abuse. So these things came into, people interrogated it, and they thought that it was also good to make sure that the name is changed. And some years back, I think maybe 10 years back now, the unit was changed from women and child protection to gender-based violence, to accommodate all genders, so that everyone can be part of the unit, so that they can feel, because you will not be comfortable to go and report to the office. You are a man and you are going to report to an office that is deal with the women. Mm-hmm. So you feel you are excluded. But now that is called gender-based violence subdivision or unit, it accommodates all people. So all people, they are welcome to report. And we have seen an increase or improvement in the number of cases that are reported and the number of issues that are before court pertaining to gender-based violence.
Thank you. Well, that was a very clear description we had from Inspector Sitali. So while we are still on the gender-based violence protection unit, because now this is a unit within the police that is separated, or that is, yes, on its own, it is independent on its own, even though it also collaborates with other sections of the police. But the question I have for you on that, Inspector Sitali, is with opening up a case around domestic violence, or let's say gender-based violence, how different is it from opening another case, for example, a case different to one of domestic violence or gender-based violence?
The difference, when these cases are reported, you agree with me that it will be an assault, just like we're assaulting anybody in the street, and an assault in the house. Because in the house, that is the place that is supposed to be the safest place on earth for anybody. So if you start experiencing now abuse from the house or assault from the house, that becomes so serious, because this person have got access to you, have got the keys to your room, have got the keys to the house, he's the one providing. So it becomes so serious that we take it, the government take it very serious compared to any ordinary assault on the street or elsewhere. So that's why that is the difference. And also you would find that all sectors of the community should come in and assist when they observe this type of things of gender-based violence. Let us not leave until the death comes into the family while we saw what had been happening, while we've been observing. Let us see where we can assist. If these people are not able to report the cases themselves to the police station, us who are closer to these people, it could be maybe at the church level, at the school level. There are council teachers or teachers who can observe that this child, the first period of the session in class, the child is already dozing. something should be wrong, because they cannot expect a child of 14 years. A child can play the whole day. But now this child, he just came from home, where he's supposed to sleep peacefully, but 40 minutes later into the class, he's dozing, he's sleeping. Then the teacher will obviously know that something is not right at home. Then that teacher should take up that case and see how to assist this child. At the church level, you observe that these people become the emotions and the way the person dresses is no longer looking after himself, herself. You realize that something is wrong. The church also should be able to interrogate, come up with the things and report. Anybody can report this issue to the police. It's not the police alone. Anybody can report issues to the police station. So we encourage that when we observe issues of gender-based violence, the bad part of gender-based violence, it always ends in a very bad way, whereby you can, at the end of the day, you can have death into the family, someone can be injured, someone can lose a part of the body, the arm or the leg, just coming from the gender-based violence. That's why it's too serious compared to any other cases that are reported.
Thank you very much. To the viewers, I think we now have an in-depth understanding on how gender-based violence has really been affecting our society. So today, we are here to have a discussion with the police so that we can have a multi-sectoral approach on addressing this type of violence. Now, the Zambezi region is one of those regions that are really affected by domestic violence. So we really need to sharpen all our tools in order to combat gender-based violence. So Inspector Nairenge, the question I have for you here is, one of the tools that one could use against domestic violence is a protection order. So can you just maybe come in and elaborate for the viewers what a protection order is, how one can go about to acquire one, and how it is different from a case?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the question. In simple, we can say the beginning, I have just to say a protection order. Before I define it, I should say it's a tool that's always helping people to avoid other repercussions that comes maybe sometimes when a case is opened, especially in domestic violence. Now, to explain about the protection orders, simply it's just a document. It's a document issued by court to protect the victim, so to say, from the behavior, from the action, from the deeds of the offender. Now, in this discussion, we can refer the offender as the respondent. That's what that's what an offender, the person that is violating the other one's rights. Now, a protection order it's just like, let me say, in certain scenario, you will find that the person who is the offender is the one that supports the victim in their economic, life setup. But then the victim does not have does not have the power to go to the police station or to court and report a case of domestic violence. But in this case, the protection order serves as a disciplinary way of how to observe the offender's behavior by at least sometimes removing them from the victim's maybe proximity. A protection order always outlines a lot of other things like terms and conditions as to what does the victim wants or how does the victim wants the offender to behave or to be. Let's pick a scenario of a man and a wife. They are in the house. Now the wife and children suffer from this man. The wife and children do not work, but they are dependent to this man. So you will find that this man, the wife will be afraid to go and report a domestic violence case at the police station because the police will come and obviously arrest this man for this case. But a protection order serves now to make it easy for this man not to be arrested. But what the court will do is to get out of the house and maybe live somewhere else. Or they will find a victim so that the victim lives with other people while observing the behavior of these men. And the good thing about the protection order is that should now the victim observes or the court is satisfied that the behavior and the conduct of the offender are no more violent, especially maybe drinking or the abuse of drugs or just violent in general. It can be words, it can be physical, it can be sexual, economic, so forth. But as long as the court is satisfied that this violence have subsided, that means the victim can at any time go back to court and again cancel it, meaning it can be removed. Now, the benefit in the protection order compared to opening a case of domestic violence is that it can be opened or it can be filed and be cancelled anytime should the behavior change of the offender. The other benefit is that the offender, if the offender is the support or is the one that supports this dependence, that means he have to continue, he or she have to continue supporting them despite being out or removed from the house and so forth, because the whole reason is just to observe the behavior or to make this person change actually. But people sometimes misunderstand it. They feel like maybe protection order, once you are given a terms and condition that do not, maybe in a distance of 200 meters, do not approach now the victim, do not communicate to the victim, or do not visit the children. Now, the offender, in case or in this scenario, if it's a man, he feel like, okay, fine, I'm removed from my house because apparently my wife and my children have to live in harmony, so I'm going now to cheat, for example, or I'm not going to support them, or I'm going now to misuse or squander my money. I will drink irresponsibly because I'm removed. But actually, protection order is not to punish. It's just meant to to change the behavior, this criminal behavior of a person into a logic thinking and a reasonable person, so to say. Yeah, so that is the mostly things, the benefit about the protection order. And this tool is, I would say to the viewers that it should be used more often before they reach at the stage of opening a case, because it serves as a disciplinary way. And we are not saying only men are offenders. We say even women are offenders. There are women that are addicted to gambling, betting, and so forth. The man is supporting them with money, but then they misuse this money. And as a result, they are always having a recurring violence at home. Children are suffering in this home. So a protection order, even a man can go also to the court and apply for one. And now what happens is, after applying one, the court will now call the offender, so to say, or the respondent, and inform them that your partner or this person that you are in a domestic relationship with have now applied for this. And they will also inform them about the violence that have been reported. So this person will also be given a chance. You know, it's a democratic country, so they have also a chance to come to court and also defend their sides, because there are actually not every case of protection order that's applied for it's a correct one, so to say, or a legitimate one. There are some people want to fake it. Maybe somebody just wants to have another boyfriend. They accuse the current boyfriend that they are violent, so that this person have to be removed from this house, and so they can have a new boyfriend. It's like a way of just breaking up a relationship. But now, in that way, everybody's given a chance. So the court and these two people, the offender and the victim, sits, and each one defends from their side as to what really happened or what is being regarded as violence. Because some people can exaggerate violence also, while others can probably the violence is happening to them, but then they can't explain it or can't say it out. But then the protection order make it easy for the court to hear from both sides. Now, should it happen that now the offender is really found to be this violent person, obviously is given now terms and conditions not to communicate, as I explained, not maybe to approach the victim. It can go to an extent of not sending any other person to go and follow maybe the victim. So until the stipulated time is lapsed, so to say. Now, I also want to emphasize that there are many times where you find that us as the police might go and arrest both of them, the victim and the offender, in these two cases. The victim goes to the court, apply for protection order, and then the offender is removed sometimes from the place. Then you find that the victim, without going back to court again and explain that the behavior or the conduct of the offender have changed, the victim goes back and reconcile with the offender, and all of them are together. So a protection order also outlines that should you be found, the victim now, should you be found that you are back in a good, maybe you are together with an offender without informing the court, you are also going to be arrested and fined for violating that terms and condition. The same applies to the offender. The offender cannot go to the victim without maybe the consent of the victim, because when the protection order is being issued, it has terms and conditions, and every case differs. Terms and conditions can differ, whether the distance, whether communication, whether seeing the children, the support, all those things, it differs. Every case has its own merit, meaning it depends now how the victim and the offender are finding it to reconcile and make sure that they come. Even family members of these two parties also are required to be present, or witnesses are also required to be present to make sure that it's true when the offender says he have changed. The observation should be considered, and then before the protection order is cancelled.
Okay,
So
well,
in short, that is.
Okay, while we're still on the protection order, Inspector Naireli, I just want you to elaborate to the viewers out there, who is eligible to file for a protection order?
Thank you very much. Let's say people such as a minor. A minor means young ones under the age of 14, or we can say some are under the age of 15, depending how you are categorizing the minor. A minor is dependent, obviously, to parents, guardians, and so forth. A minor is also a person that needs a protection order. We can also find a person that is mentally incapable. Like there are terms that are referred to here as a stupid person, or an imbecile, or mental incapacity, meaning they are not at the capacity of normality to reason logically like the rest of the other reasonable people supposed to be. So these people needs now to be applied a protection order for. I will come to as to who can apply on behalf of them. But these are the people that can be applied a protection order for, in order for them to be safe. We can also talk of a regular person that is always under the influence of alcohol. We have people in our society that abuse alcohol or drugs to an extent that they are addicted, they become alcoholics or drug addicts, and they don't find it necessary, or they don't see it as useful to go and apply for this protection order. But then violence is happening on them. So these type of people also are part of it. And then we have also a person that is unconscious, or maybe suffer from temporary mental incapacity. These are people that have certain condition. There are people that sometimes collapse, people that can suffer in certain condition where it's just temporary, but it could be a temporary medical condition that they suffer from it. But then by the moment maybe they are suffering, or they are unconscious of what is happening, like they are out of reality, sometimes violence happens to them. It could be sexual, it could be maybe even economical. Nobody's giving them food because of their condition. So these type of people need also a protection order. And then it can also be any person that needs to have this protection order. It could be a family member, but then this person might not be an alcoholic or drug addict or whatsoever, but maybe educational level, they do not know their rights, or they feel like maybe being in a relationship or what is happening to them. There are people who believe that Perhaps the bad thing that's happening to me, maybe it's because last year I did bad things. So God is punishing me in this way. So they do not feel like going to report. So this is a person also that need a protection order. Now, who should now apply a protection order maybe on behalf of the people that I have indicated? The minor, the mental incapacity, the unconscious, the people that are at risk of physical harm. It could be a family member, any family member that feel like you are interested in the well-being of the victim. You have the right to go and apply for a protection order on behalf of that person. And you have a social worker. Those are people that can help us also to apply. The social worker might not be a related person, might not be even like by blood or extended family to be a related person to the victim, but they can just also help. It can be educators such as teachers. It can be police officer. We are also allowed, if we see it in our community or in our society, we have the right to go and apply a protection order against the offender so that this person lives in a safer or comfort environment. Also, traditional our leaders, like the inspector indicated, as well as the church leaders or religious leaders, those are also can come in and apply on behalf, because these are people actually that can see the victims from their physical appearances, from their economic status. Sometimes they can observe someone needs protection order, and these are people that can come in. And also any person who is just in the interest of the well-being of a victim. Any person, you are not a social worker, police officer, teacher or whatever, but you are just a law-abiding citizen, so to say, who is interested, who is seeing that there is this person who is a victim. You have also the right to go to the court and apply on behalf of that victim. Those are the people that can apply.
There we have it. This is very interesting because we really need to understand what the police has been working around in terms of sensitizing the communities on this type of violence, as well as helping those who are in need of services that could be offered by the police. So, since we are approaching the end of our discussion, I would just like each of you, maybe in less than 30 seconds, to just give us your final words. Let's start with you, Inspector Stari.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that the programs of this kind have yielded some fruits, because it had not been happening for some time now. Although we have been doing awareness through community meeting, through stakeholder engagement, through other maybe social media platforms like the crime prevention WhatsApp groups that we have in the suburbs. We've been now reached this level whereby we are able to communicate with the masses remotely, and I hope this type of communication will continue so that our people can get the message, so that they can not suffer in silence. People should know their rights, and they should know where to go when their rights are being violated, and should know what to report. And going forward, I hope this type of sessions shall continue for the benefit of our society. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this platform because being aware of at least certain things that are happening is actually a good thing, because there are many people, I would say, some like men, do not know that actually they have the right to report to the police about this domestic violence or the violence that's happening at home. They feel like men, we are stronger, we have this stronger personality, or we are believed in the society, but that we should not cry, we should just be strong and all those things. But there are violence that are happening. And when it comes to offender and victim, it doesn't have yes. Children can become offenders of their parents. While you find that in some relationship, a wife is actually the offender of the husband, because this domestic violence comes in different forms. So we want every person to know their rights through these type of platforms. They should listen to radios, should watch televisions. There are also other social media platforms, WhatsApp, YouTube. So everyone is required to be educated in this type of thing so you can know your rights. I also want to say you do not need to know all the law or all your rights in order to report this type of domestic violence. Just come to any police station. They will guide you always. At the church office or ask for reference, they will always guide you to go to domestic violence or gender-based violence subunits where you can be helped with these cases. So I'm appreciating this platform, and we look forward to also teach our people and say there are many options apart from domestic protection order. Even the disciplinary part, it's also things that can be used. It's actually a tool that one can use, as long as you do not go across. You can discipline another person, or you can inform them. You can call social workers. You can approach church or religious leaders. You can approach traditional authorities. There are many actually options that one can do before you take up the law in your own hand. Before you decide that what you believe the punishment for the victim for whatever they did is this one. Actually, you have a lot of platforms, so you cannot become an offender. So I
Thank you. On to you, detective.
The Namibian Police is not just there to go and then just arrest people. We are servants of the community. We are here to give advice. We are here to rectify. We are like parents. You understand? We are parents with a very big whip.
We are teachers.
We are teachers as well.
Counselors.
We are everything that you require in a home. So people should not feel afraid to come to us, to have a conversation with us, or to stop a police officer who's walking in the street and saying, "Sir, do you mind? I have a problem. Do you have a minute to listen?" We always have time to listen to your problems. So that is the last point that I want to say. Basically, we are your friends, and at the same time, we are your parents. You cannot be like your bestie with your parents. You know that when it gets dark and you do something wrong, the whip is always going to be there, but there's always that respect that should always be maintained. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
So here we have it to our viewers. This was a very interesting discussion that we had today. We are hosted by the Zambezi Police Regional Head Office, and this brings us to the end of our discussion. And please do not forget to stay tuned for more discussions like this. So please stay connected to our social media platforms that we're going to share, as well as make sure that you're also aware of the Inside Zambezi, which is a platform where we're going to look at how we could engage different stakeholders that has to deal with combating this type of violences that we have in our communities. So today we had it with the police from the Zambezi region, and we hope to have a productive future in implementing programs together that could benefit the community. So from us, until we meet again.